Repaints really seem to be Hasbro's bread and butter sometimes. No shade on them at all, in fact some of my favourite figures are repaints. I mean look at the last couple of weeks, where all I seem to have looked at were figures and their repaints that I felt were far better than their originals, but I would call those justifiable. They were different characters after all. But when a figure gets repainted into a different version, or heaven forbid an improved variation of the same thing, it seems to spark entire wars within the fanbase. There's always some on team, I've already bought this and now you're making me buy it again, and there's some on team, upgrade it if you want, but you don't have to. Personally, I tend to play devil's advocate and lean towards the latter principle. Sure, I didn't have to sell my Legacy Blaster and then replace it with the SS86 variant when it released, but I took the plunge and ended up better off for it in my books. So, I'd like to take a look at Studio Series 86 Blaster to explain my reasoning, but for that, I need to say a few things about Legacy Blaster, or Kingdom Blaster for myself because it was going for £3 cheaper when it released. Now, the Legacy release was never a bad figure by any means, but I had three main issues with it. The first and most major was the feel. The joint tolerances on my copy were all over the place, and it made him a nightmare to pose, and the red plastic always seemed a little off to me. Kinda felt like knockoff plastic with its partially reflective sheen. Second were the colours. These never felt wrong to me, I didn't mind the choices for anything, but the head with the silver paint on its own looks fine, but put him in a group shot and suddenly he fades out of focus, and that's not what you want from Blaster of all characters. And the final thing was the clear eject he came with, which to me just felt like a ticking time bomb. So given all the issues that I had, I jumped on the pre-order for 86 Blaster when he was revealed, and good god this took this figure from a 4 to a 9 in my books real quick. So now, after the longest preamble in the history of my channel, the sculpted detail and the proportions on this guy are amazing. They always were. The light levels of surface detailing on the red and dark grey portions really help give the broader parts of this guy some flair, and the greebling on the shins and hips go nuts. I love the shins on this guy with most of the speaker array on display here, and I can't not praise the tape door and head, both with the perfect balance of panel lining and clean surfaces. The only issue I have with the sculpt is the hollowness on the back of the legs. Yeah, that's a little obnoxious. I know that some people aren't a fan of this guy being an 86 figure because of the level of sculpting on display here, but honestly, this feels right at home to me, at least with the earlier 86 releases. Feels right between Perceptor and Cup. Love it. And the colours, oh my god, the colours on this figure. The red, the yellow, and the light grey all look so much nicer than the Legacy version. They're so saturated and lively, and switching out all the black for a darker grey was genius. Really tips him over to feeling like the animation appearance of Blaster. And that extends to the paintwork too. The white face looks so much better to me and really lets the details shine. The tamper-graph detail on the tape deck looks amazing, but unfortunately mine is painted askew. God damn it. This isn't the most colossal issue in the world, it's not even that noticeable unless you're looking at him head on, but it's still an annoying little issue that makes me want to rip my skin off. It's just parallel lines, just... This guy comes with a couple of accessories, the first being his blaster. Well, imagine being so vain you name your gun after yourself. This looks really nice, the snipery look is really distinct, and he holds it very well. You can also plug it into his back, and you can also press the buttons on his chest to produce his infant son, Eject, who I can really appreciate now that he's made of solid plastic. This decision. Eject here has some insanely nice painting and sculpting going on. I love that head and chest detail, and the paintwork is super impressive. Look at those eyes! He even has better posing than his core class Decepticons, with a ball jointed head, universal shoulders, ball jointed elbows, universal hips, and ball jointed knees. His posing is almost as good as his dad's, which is to say, pretty average to be honest. The head is on a really good ball joint, a lot of wobble there. The shoulders go out a little less than average and around pretty well. He has bicep swivels, really good elbows, some in and out of the wrists which help him press his buttons. He's got a waist swivel, really good hips going out forward and back, thigh swivels, good knees, and a solid ankle pivot. The posing on this guy doesn't go nuts, it's good but nothing too out of the ordinary, but where this excels is in the feel of its joints and connections. Every joint and transformation locking point feels perfectly tight, and more so than any other figure I can think of, buttery smooth. All the joints just seem to glide as you bend them, and that is the biggest reason why I hold this figure in such high regard. Transformation here is good. It's very much a point A to point B affair, without a highlight really. I suppose flipping the speakers around is quite nice, and getting the legs plugged together is pretty satisfying. Mind you, that was hell on the Legacy one. And finishing closing all that up leaves you with an absolutely amazing Ghetto Blaster. I love this. It's way better than Netflix Soundwave's recorder mode, that's for sure. This is such a clean, concise, and well-proportioned box, and I love all the little details on it. The front speakers look amazing, the dials and switches look great, and there's even a faux jack, that's awesome, and the handle really ties it all together. The back is a little gappy, but I'll be honest, it's not really that bad, and getting the cassettes in and out in there is a unique kind of fun. This is a great boombox mode, but I'll be honest, I don't know if it's better than the Legacy version. I think this one looks more iconic with the grey along the bottom, but the paint applications on the dials and buttons does put it behind the first release in my books. I'd honestly recommend both of these guys. There's definitely a market for both. Personally, I'm a fan of the cartoon decos for the bulk of my collection, so the 86 version appeals more to me, but maybe the chuggier Legacy version takes your fancy. It's all up to you. Still though, I much prefer the 86 version. The colours all round just work a lot better for me, and that hand feel just chef's kiss. But don't worry, if neither of those decos appeal to you, then you do have a couple of alternatives. Isn't that right, Chambolism?
So you need to know about Twincast, and Rewind of course. Twincast's sculpt is a pretty square and bulky design like Blaster, with the same features. This time however, Twincast is painted in a nice blue which works extremely well in contrast with the yellow, light grey and red colours on the figure. Speaking of colour and paint, the bright yellow from Blaster carries on to Twincast. The upper thighs and lower legs are painted with that light grey, the speakers on his legs, his feet and hands are coloured red instead of black, and Twincast's gun is the same colour. His head is that nice blue colour I mentioned earlier, and his face is now that bright yellow with a nice silver colour on his forehead instead of white. On the chest you have some nice boombox buttons that open up the chest to reveal a cassette tape called Rewind. Rewind is now a transparent grey with some light grey colours on the back. Oh yeah, and he bums a headmaster in the comic, so that's fun. Overall, I really love this figure a lot. I mean, the only reason why I bought this figure was because MrLoubat told me that Rewind and Chrome Dome are gay together, so gotta get that LGBT grind, you know? Anyway, these colours are amazing and work well together, but not as much as the Blaster colours. And now, on to the TheSheepWielder.
Thank you, random citizen. The good news is, fear not everyone, for I am here to save the day. And the bad news? I'm not here for very long. Loubat's pay me by the minute. Also, as this is a straight repaint, there isn't much to go through, so I guess let's just get the f on with it. Seen here in his prehistoric iPod mode, this shattered glass blaster is predominantly grey in the middle with some light blue detailing for the tape deck, some blurple and black. Of course, comes with a purple Autobot symbol, as was the fashion at the time. It's the same thing you've seen already, just in slightly different colours. I have nothing else to really add about this mode, but while I just transform him in the background, let's talk about the biggest disappointment since the inception of my channel. This is Shatterglass Eject. And because this is based on the pre-SS one, that means it comes in clear plastic. You know, just of the blood orange variety. What advantages does this have over the original, I hear you ask? The colours are nicer. Like, that's literally all there is to it. Like, it's all well and good having me retreat off to my consume cave, but here's the slight problem. How am I supposed to consume product when it's just gonna break in my fucking hands? Common Joe Asbroel, you f***ed it this time. Speaking of Joe Asbroels, here we have one of the blandest Shatterglass repaint. Oh no. Blaster, I don't give a f*** who said what. You can't do that anymore. I don't give a f*** if it's who you really are. You can't do that. You're gonna get this segment of the video removed from Netflix. But yeah, there's Blaster, there's Blackface, cool. But I mean, outside of that, it's exactly what you expect. He's a straightforward repaint with no new details. He's neither a high nor a low of the Shatterglass line. He shows up and does the bare minimum, which is exactly what I expect of a repaint, to be fair. And if you're a somewhat selective completionist like myself, he's 50 quid you're never gonna see again. Or however much he goes for now, actually. Alright, Loubat, thanks for having me. Back to you in your hovel. Oh, and remember, kids, if a child of Saturn reaches out to you for friendship, you tell him to f*** off.